Hello everyone, welcome to this module. In this video, we are exploring the addictive nature of procrastination. This is going to be a very interesting module, and it's going to give you a lot of clarity on why are you behaving the way you are behaving? Why are you procrastinating? Okay, so let's dive straight in. Procrastination is a coping mechanism. We do it to avoid feeling what our brain perceives as unpleasant emotions. So anything from boredom, overwhelm, anxiety, nervousness, fear, whatever it is that could potentially bring this discomfort in your body is perceived as a potential threat by your brain. Okay. So the moment you choose to avoid feeling the emotion associated with a certain task by putting this task off, you get a sense of relief. And this relief is actually produced by the release of dopamine in your brain. So, dopamine is the feel good neurochemical which is responsible for the reward system in your brain and for your survival. Now, the things that are important for our survival are eating food, drinking water, socializing with other people, and having sex. So, Mother Nature's way of helping us survive is by giving us a sense of satisfaction from the things that we must do in order to survive. And this sense of satisfaction is the production of dopamine that is released each time we do any of those activities. So you all know the feeling when you are hungry, you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That uncomfortable feeling is actually your brain telling you that there is something you must do right now to get satisfaction, to feel good again. So because you've done that so many times, like when you felt hungry, you ate food, you felt good, the dopamine levels in your brain arose, and now you remember that every time you feel hungry, you must eat in order to feel good again. And this is the same with drinking water, socializing, and having sex. So this is the amazing way of Mother Nature to not only help us remember what we must do in order to survive, but to also give us pleasure from doing so. So each time you do any of those activities, the production of the production of dopamine in your brain creates this checklist. Okay, when I ate food, that felt good, so this must be important for my survival. I must remember this activity and I must repeat it again. Okay, now, what happens when we decide to put off any task that potentially can cause any uncomfortable feeling? Each time we are about to take the decision to do the scary task, we build that anticipation of facing the fear or facing the threat. And as we build this anticipation, we are on the verge of doing it. But when we decide not to, what happens is that you get a sense of relief. There is a dopamine release in your brain. Your brain now feels safe for not having to face the threat. So, from the feeling of relief, your brain releases dopamine, which teaches your brain that what you just did was important for your survival. Remember, this is hacking your reward system and it teaches it to do the activity again and again and again. So, procrastination actually hacked our reward system. Now, the more you choose to not do the scary thing, the more you train your brain to believe that this is a must. Whenever there is a scary task, we must avoid it to survive. So I want you to picture this. For example, you are about to put yourself out there and maybe release your course or program or go live on Facebook or take on a client or something like that. Now, you know what you must do. Let's say you must post a video of you talking about the new launch that you have. And then you build that anticipation. Oh my gosh, it's going to be scary. It's going to be whatever. And then you build that anticipation, but then you hesitate and then you find an excuse why is not no, now not the good time to do it. I'm not prepared enough. Maybe I should do a few more things before I do the lunch. So you hesitate and you put off the task. Now, what happens is that you get a sense of relief because you don't have to face the fear. You don't have to go through with it. And then your brain feels safe. And the more you do it, the more you teach your brain that this is important for your survival because it released dopamine in your brain. You felt good, you felt satisfied on the primitive level, okay? So our brain now begins to be conditioned that each time we feel the urge to procrastinate, to avoid feeling certain negative emotion, we did so. And it was good because we got a reward. We got the reward of relief. We didn't have to face the scary thing. So now it will remind us to do it again and again and again until we break the cycle. This is why procrastination also feels like a vicious cycle. The more we do it, the more we perpetuate it, and the more we perpetuate it, the more we do it. Can you see now why it seems so hard for you to break that cycle? Okay, so here's a little example I want to give you. Actually, this experiment is made by a Russian scientist by the name of Ivan Pavlov. The experiment is called the Pavlov dogs experiment, and later on it became known as classical conditioning, in psychology and psychotherapy. So what Pavlov did is each time he would feed the dogs, he would ring a bell, okay? Now, before he started the experiment with the bell, what he noticed is that each time he would bring the food to the dogs, they would start salivating, right? So when he rings the bell and brings the food, the dogs start salivating. At some point, what he noticed is that the dogs were salivating just by the ring of the bell alone, even if there was no food. So because he did it so many times, like each time he would ring the bell and bring the food, the dog started associating the ring of the bell with the food. But the ring of the bell on its own shouldn't make a dog salivate, right? Because it has nothing to do with the food. However, they learned or they were conditioned to associate one with the other. So what happened then is that food plus bell repetition created the result of bell triggers saliva, right? Again, the food triggers saliva, the bell doesn't trigger saliva. But the more you repeat the food plus the bell, the more you condition the dog to believe that bell means food, and therefore the bell alone would start to trigger the saliva, okay? So in our case with procrastination, each time we felt afraid and then we escaped facing the emotion, we learned that feeling afraid or any negative emotion for that matter is a threat. It's unsafe, and that procrastinating or avoiding it helps us feel better and safe. And because when we did, we got that dopamine release from the sense of belief, now we have been conditioned to believe that procrastination actually helps us. So last time when we felt afraid, we didn't do the task and we felt better or we felt safer. And of course, your brain remembers that must be important for our survival. I must remember it and I must repeat it. I hope you understand that. So this is the example of the dog. The bell triggers saliva, and the false belief that the dog was conditioned with was food is coming. In our case, fear triggers the urge to run away, or fear triggers the urge to procrastinate. Because we did it each time we felt the urge to run away, the false belief was created, and we are now conditioned to believe procrastination helps me to feel safe, better, happier. Is that really true though? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we are now conditioned to believe that. And that's why procrastination feels so addictive. What we need to understand is that this is only a false belief we have created. The negative emotion is not actually a threat, and it cannot harm us in any way. The negative emotion on its own is simply a vibration in the body. It is absolutely not threatening for your survival. It cannot harm you if you simply choose to feel it instead of running away from it. But a lot of us have not been taught how to manage our emotions. In our modern society, nobody teaches us how to master emotional management skills. And we are made to believe that we must avoid feeling any negative emotions and feel only the positive ones, okay? But that's not true. And you will learn how to master the skill and how to face your emotions so you are unstoppable. Now, the good thing about this behavior that we have learned and conditioned ourselves with is that it can be unlearned. And your brain's ability to be adjusted and to be conditioned in a new way is what modern science calls neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to be rewired and to adapt to new behavior that are more supportive for your success and for your growth. Now I'm going to play a little video for you to see how the repetition of putting a task off actually created these pathways in our brain that now becomes a second nature. So that's why also procrastination feels a little bit like we are doing it against our own will, because it's become subconscious. It's become our second nature. We do it by default. We do it on autopilot because we've just done it so many times. And you will also see in this video how we can break that cycle of procrastination and actually create new neural pathways of us taking action each time we feel fear, each time we feel doubt, and so on. So have a look, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Okay, so you see how this is possible, right? Like we must just choose to travel a new path and do it often enough for our brain to learn that this is our new self. This is our new behavior. We are people who face our emotions. We are not people who escape from them. So I hope that was helpful. Now, the way to unteach the brain to have this association is to stop rewarding it for the behavior. That's like as simple as it is. We can literally train your brain to do anything we want, but we must stop rewarding it for the behavior that we don't want. How do we reward it? Well, you already learned about the release of dopamine in the brain. That's the reward. So we must stop rewarding it. It's like the dogs. Like the moment you stop rewarding them with food, they stop associating the bell with food. They stop salivating. So in order to break these habits, every time you would normally just avoid doing something, we would shine conscious light on it and we would do it instead. Okay. And I would teach you how to do it. Okay. Uh, we would teach our brain that you are the master. You are pulling the strings. You are the more evolved conscious one. And most importantly, we teach it that there is no actual threat. Okay. So would you feel fear? Yes. But would you do it anyway? Absolutely. The more you do it, the more you build the confidence in yourself, and the more you teach your brain that there is nothing to be afraid of. We procrastinate in order to avoid feeling negative emotions. And we do that to stay unconscious because that seems like the easier choice. So we procrastinate. Let's say the moment you avoid putting yourself out there or doing the thing that you should be doing is to avoid feeling negative emotion because you don't want to feel it. You're so afraid of what that negative emotion would feel like that you're like, fuck that. I'd rather just stay unconscious and do something meaningless that takes my mind off of thinking about that or feeling that because it seems easier, but you know it's not. You know the pain of unfulfilled potential, the regret, the pain of regret of unfulfilled potential is much more painful than actually facing the emotion. And in the video, the module about the model, the CTFAR model that I'll teach you how to feel those emotions, you will see that there is nothing actually to be afraid of. And I'll give you the tools to help you manage those emotions. Now, if procrastination is our attempt to stay unconscious because we fear feeling the negative emotions, the solution then, or the answer to breaking the cycle is consciousness. To unplug ourselves from the matrix, taking the conscious choice of experiencing our emotions instead of running away from them, knowing that they can't harm us and that it is totally fine to allow them to run through our bodies and let them go. This is your exit. This is your solution. And by the way, procrastination is very similar to alcoholism, smoking cigarettes, overeating, or any other habit that keep us unconscious. And therefore, we can actually utilize those same strategies and techniques that I'm teaching you here to break any other habit that you have. Okay, so we are overeating or drinking or smoking in order to avoid feeling the discomfort. But here's the thing, what if we just did? What if we just felt it and became conscious of it and actually allowed it to run through our body instead of running away from them? What will happen then? Well, you would become unstoppable because everything you do or don't do in your life is to feel certain emotions or to avoid feeling a bad one, a negative one. So what if you're just like this freaking warrior that says, I don't care. I don't care if it's fear, doubt, insecurity, whatever. I'm willing to feel that emotion. If you are willing to feel that emotion, guess what? There is absolutely nothing that you cannot do because that's the only thing stopping you. You are afraid to feel the emotion of judgment. You're like, for example, we say, oh, I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of whatever. You're not actually afraid of the failure or the judgment. You're afraid of how would that make you feel, right? Because if you take it out of the context, and like if you say, for example, I'm afraid of being judged, and then you say, and then you just take you break it down into logical pieces, and then you neutralize, and then you say, okay, what does being judged means? Well, it means a couple of humans saying words about something. Like if you just make it factual, and then you just separate the mind drama from the actual thing, then you're like, okay, so a couple of humans saying words about a video that I made. Okay, so what am I afraid of? Well, I'm afraid how would that make me feel? Okay, but what if I choose to interpret that judgment in whatever way I want, and choose how I want to feel about it, number one. Or number two, if it still produces any negative emotion within me, what if I just let it be there and actually experience it instead of running away from it and saying, fuck that shit, I'm I'm never gonna be a success, and just run away? What if I just choose to experience it, and I remember that emotions cannot harm me, and emotions last in the body within uh, 90 seconds, only about 90 seconds. Well, what happens then? You become fucking unstoppable. There's nothing that can stop you from doing anything anymore if you're just willing to be conscious and to experience your emotions. So, what is it gonna be? Are you gonna take the red pill and exit the matrix, or are you gonna stay plugged in unconscious behaviors and keep repeating the same cycles over and over again? Well, I'm sure you'll take the red pill because you are part of this community, and I'm here to help you become unstoppable. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.